The story of the greedy doctor and the hunger of the poor is one of those village tales that sticks with you because it feels way too real even today. In a small rural town where dusty roads met struggling lives, people didn't have much except hope and faith. Money was tight, food was tighter, and sickness could knock on your door any day. In that village stood a clinic that everyone knew, not because it healed people with kindness, but because fear followed its name. The doctor who ran it was educated, well-dressed and respected on the surface, but deep down he had a heart harder than stone. For him, medicine wasn't a mission. It was a business, and business came before humanity. Every single time, most families in the village lived hand to mouth. If they ate twice a day, it was a good day. Kids grew up fast, parents aged faster, and hunger was like an uninvited guest that never left. When someone fell sick, the first question wasn't "How bad is it?" but "Can we afford the doctor?" That alone tells you everything about the kind of power the greedy doctor held. He knew people were desperate, and instead of helping, he squeezed every last penny out of them. To him, pain was profit, and suffering was just another payday. The doctor's clinic looked clean and modern compared to the mud houses around it. White walls, shiny furniture, and shelves full of medicine gave people hope when they stepped inside. But that hope usually died fast. The doctor barely looked at his patients. He talked fast, wrote prescriptions faster, and demanded money before treatment even started. If someone said they didn't have enough cash, his face would change instantly. His voice would turn cold and his eyes would lose all warmth. No money, no medicine was basically his rule. Even if the patient was on the edge of death, one day, a poor man named Ramu came to the clinic. He was thin, weak, and clearly starving. Hunger had eaten away at his strength long before illness did. Ramu worked as a daily laborer, and some days he didn't find work at all. His wife and children often slept hungry, and now he himself could barely stand. Fever burned through his body, and every breath felt like a fight. His family gathered whatever money they could, selling small things, borrowing from neighbors, and finally tied the coins in a cloth bag. It wasn't much, but it was everything they had. When Ramu reached the clinic, he could hardly walk. He collapsed on the floor, and his elderly mother dropped to her knees, folding her hands and begging the doctor to save her son. Tears streamed down her wrinkled face as she talked about their hunger, their poverty, and their faith in him. The doctor listened, but not with compassion. He looked annoyed, like someone was wasting his time. He picked up the cloth bag, weighed it in his hand, and frowned. It wasn't enough. Not even close to what he wanted. The doctor's greed showed no shame. He told them the treatment would cost more, much more. He listed tests, injections, and medicines that sounded important but were often unnecessary. Ramu's mother cried harder. She said they had nothing left to give. The doctor shrugged like it wasn't his problem. That moment showed the ugly truth. Education without ethics is dangerous, and power without empathy destroys lives. The poor man lay there, hungry, sick, and helpless, while the man sworn to heal chose money over mercy. Word of the doctor's behavior spread through the village, but people still went to him because they had no other choice. Hunger doesn't give you options. Poverty traps you. When your child is sick, pride disappears. You beg, you borrow, you kneel if you have to. The greedy doctor counted on that desperation. He built a big house, bought expensive clothes, and lived comfortably while the village around him struggled just to survive. He never asked himself why the poor were hungry. He only cared about how much he could make from their misery. As time passed, something started to change. The villagers began talking among themselves, sharing stories of how they were treated. Anger slowly replaced fear. People realized that sickness wasn't the only disease in the village. Greed was killing them too. A young man who had studied basic medicine in the city returned to the village. He wasn't a full doctor, but he had knowledge and, more importantly, compassion. He started helping people for free or for whatever they could afford. At first, the greedy doctor laughed it off, thinking no one would trust an inexperienced guy over him. But hunger teaches people who is real and who is fake. Slowly, villagers began visiting the young healer. He listened to them, explained their illness in simple words, and treated them with respect. He even shared food with those who hadn't eaten. The clinic under the big doctor started to feel empty. The sound of coins dropping into his drawer became rare. For the first time, he felt uncomfortable. His greed had built walls, but now those walls were closing in on him. The greedy doctor grew bitter. He blamed the villagers for being ungrateful, He blamed fate, competition, and bad luck, but never himself. One night, karma hit hard. He fell seriously ill. High fever, weakness, and pain took over his body. Suddenly, he was the one lying helpless, feeling hungry and afraid. The medicines he trusted didn't work the way he expected. Servants avoided him, and his money couldn't buy peace of mind. For the first time, he understood what it felt like to be powerless. When word spread that the doctor was sick, the villagers reacted in different ways. Some felt satisfaction, others felt pity. The young healer was called to help him. He went without hesitation. He didn't lecture, didn't mock, didn't demand money. He treated the greedy doctor with the same kindness he showed everyone else. That contrast hit harder than any punishment. Lying on the bed, the doctor realized how empty his life had been. Surrounded by wealth but starved of humanity, he had lived wrong. Recovery gave him time to think. Hunger, sickness, and loneliness changed him. He remembered Ramu, his mother, and countless others he had turned away. Guilt settled deep in his chest. He saw clearly that greed had blinded him, and in chasing money, he had lost respect, love, and purpose. When he finally stood on his feet again, he made a choice that shocked the village. He reopened his clinic with a new rule: treatment first, money later, if at all. At first, people didn't trust the change. They had been burned before, but over time his actions proved real. He treated the hungry without asking questions. He reduced costs, gave free medicine, and even arranged food for patients who hadn't eaten. Slowly, the clinic became a place of healing, not fear. The doctor learned that serving the poor didn't make him smaller. It made him human. The hunger of the poor taught him a lesson money never could. This story of the greedy doctor and the hunger of the poor carries a strong moral that still applies today. In a world where healthcare often feels like a business, it reminds us that compassion should never be optional. Hunger isn't just about food. It's about dignity, respect, and being seen. When people are poor, they don't need judgment. They need support. Greed may bring short-term gain, but it always leaves a long-term emptiness. From an SEO point of view, this moral story connects deeply with readers searching for village stories, English moral stories, stories about greed and poverty, and lessons on humanity. It reflects real social issues like healthcare inequality, hunger, and ethical responsibility. Readers relate because the emotions are universal. Fear, desperation, guilt, and redemption are feelings everyone understands. The use of simple language, mixed with natural American slang, makes the story feel modern and relatable while keeping its traditional moral core. The greedy doctor didn't start out evil. He became that way by choosing money over people again and again. That's the scary part. Greed grows quietly. One bad choice leads to another until it becomes a habit. The hunger of the poor exposes that greed because it forces a choice: help or exploit. This story makes it clear that real success isn't measured by how much you earn, but by how many lives you uplift along the way. In the end, the village didn't just heal physically, it healed emotionally. Trust returned. People learned the value of unity and speaking up. The doctor learned humility, and the story lived on, told to children as a warning and a lesson. Whenever someone asked why kindness mattered, elders would say, "Remember the greedy doctor and the hunger of the poor." That sentence alone carried enough weight to remind everyone that humanity should always come before profit. This tale continues to resonate because the world still struggles with the same problems. Hunger still exists. Greed still tempts people in power. But stories like this give hope. They show that change is possible, that redemption is real, and that even the hardest hearts can soften when faced with truth. The hunger of the poor is not just a social issue. It's a test of our character, and how we respond defines who we really are.